There we go. Okay, so welcome everyone to the Pursuing Intentional Learning and Organizations Together project. This 4-week series is sponsored by Michigan State University's Graduate School and the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. Today's session is titled Beyond Academia, Navigating the Transition to Non-Academic Careers. We are excited to feature and engage in a discussion with today's guest speakers from MDARD. My name is Janetta Mulkey-Hill. I am the graduate student coordinator for the series, and I will be facilitating each session. So just for some context, the pilot project aims to bridge the gap between graduating students and non-academic professionals and provide graduate students with valuable insights and practical strategies for transitioning from academia to non-academic careers. If you haven't registered yet, you can use the QR code displayed on the following slides to register and receive email reminders about each of the sessions. I will also add a link to the registration in the chat after this introduction. The pilot project includes a series of virtual meetings held on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. from July 9th to August 1st via Zoom. So Tuesdays from 4 to 5 will feature speakers from MDARD on a specific topic for the week. Thursdays from 4 to 5 will be dedicated to interactive workshops. These workshops are designed to be more like writing groups where we will collaborate and work together on professional skills and documents. In these workshops, we aim to help apply what we've learned, develop practical skills, and support each other in our career transitions. Please remember to use the same Zoom link from today's session for Thursday's workshop. For the next 4 weeks, we will delve into the following topics. This week, we will focus on providing insights and practical strategies for transitioning from academia to non-academic careers. We will discuss effective ways to leverage advanced degrees in professional settings, identify transferable skills, and navigate a variety of career pathways. Next week, we will reflect on our values, transferable skills, and interests to create a personalized framework for evaluating a variety of career pathways. And then in week 3, we will focus on conducting job searches and crafting resumes and cover letters tailored to non-academic roles. And in week 4, we will focus on strategies for job interviews and optimizing networking for career growth. So now I would like to introduce today's speakers. First, we have Stephen Kakari, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name, please correct me. Who is the pesticide inspector in the Bureau of Environment and Sustainability. Then we have Kayleen Schumacher, the communications manager for the Animal Industry Division. And then we have Stephanie Rhodes, who is the plant pathology laboratory scientist in the Bureau of Environment and Sustainability. So we are excited to have them with us today to share their insights and experiences. And again, just a reminder that today's session will be recorded and posted on our website for those who are able to attend. So who were unable to attend. So I ask that you turn off your mics and videos during the presentation, and then you can turn them back on when we have our discussion and QA session at the end. So thank you all for being here, and let's go ahead and get started. Stephen, do you mind going first?
Absolutely not. I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you.
So let me share my presentation here. Are you able to see it now?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for inviting me here. My name is Stephen Kakaire, as we have been told, and I work with the Pesticide and Plant Pest Management Division in the Bureau of Environment and Sustainability. So I wanted to share my presentation here outline. I'll talk about who am I, my education journey, my career path, my transition experiences and challenges, and then helpful transition strategies. So who am I? I was born in Uganda in East Africa and moved to the US here about 10 years ago. I'm a hematologist. I've been married 17 years. I have 4 children. And I love writing, reading, travel, making connections, environment and nature, and many other things. So I started my academic journey as I graduated in 2001 at Makerere University in Uganda with a BS in plant sciences. And a few years later, I graduated from Ghent University in Belgium with an MS in nematology in 2006. And then in 2012, I graduated from Harper Adams University with a PhD in nematology in 2012. After that, I started off my career as an agricultural extension educator in Uganda right after college, advising farmers on the best practices to produce. Later on, I joined the equivalent of MDARD in Uganda. It was called Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, where I worked as a regulator for 11 years. And then I moved to the US because I knew I wanted to pursue my career in the US at some point. So I started looking around, and I got my first postdoc in 2014 with Mississippi State University. I came on an H-1B visa for employment where the university sponsored me. That contract was for 3 years until 2017. So when it ended, I looked for another postdoc, and I ended up here in Michigan, with Michigan State University between 2017 and 2020. That contract also was 3 years, and it ended just before COVID. But because most of the employers were not like recruiting, so I had a bit of time without a job. Then as MDAD opened up later that year and early 2021, after applying for several positions and interviewing for them, I later got in as a plant industry scientist in 2021, where I work until now. So I wanted to share some of my experiences because it has been a long journey and many things that happened. So first of all, I knew from the start that transitioning from academic settings to non-academic settings, or even any transition, requires, first of all, mental preparation and also timely planning. But how soon that happens depends on a couple of things. So there are a couple of reasons why one may want to transition, and I'll tell you what my driver was. But I identified a couple of them, including no interest in pursuing academic career. It could be some people transition because there are no open positions in academia at the time because, it's very competitive and all sorts of factors. Then others transition because of peer influence. Maybe their colleagues are at the other side and they encourage them to do so, and maybe they think about it. You may be in a state of indecision. You're not decided whether to transition or not. You're just there. You're not sure. But all that determines how soon you prepare and how soon you make your way through. Now, in my case, I was sure that I was not planning to pursue an academic career. So I right away started planning on where I was going to go and what I was going to do. And in order to do that, I asked myself a couple of questions. One, when do I plan to transition? Because I gave myself a timeline that I must work through this process within this particular period. That way, it gave me time to know what to do when and be able to prepare myself. Then I also asked myself, am I ready to start low? Because as you realize, like in my case, I was paid more within the university setting than when I joined MDAD, because I realized later that I could not join from a higher level, although I tried to apply for those positions. But normally, the system, you are normally required, or rather, it's such that you join from a lower level and then grow through the system. So So I asked myself, am I ready to do that? And of course, yes. Then am I okay not to be addressed by my title? Because when you're from a university setting, you're doctor, professor, whatever, are you okay with not being addressed by your title wherever you're going? Because it's not going to happen most of the time, if not all the time, in a non-academic setting. So if you're planning to transition, that should be something you should ask yourself. Am I ready to work under supervisors who are not as educated as I am? You see, that is also something very critical, because if you're not prepared to do that, then you may as well not be able to go where you want to go, because they will not always be there. Then I had to look at who are my potential employers. I had MDARD on my radar way back, because I knew I had worked in a regulatory setting in Uganda for about 11 years. So that was my interest. So I said, the organization that will give me that kind of work will have to be like MDARD, for instance, in Michigan, since I was already here. So I put that on my radar and worked towards that. Then I also, in considering where to go and my transition, I say, does this institution have promotion opportunities? Yes, because in the MDARD structure, yes, you start low, but over time and as you grow into the system, there are promotion opportunities. At least I knew there was that chain of promotion, so that I knew that was a place to be, because although I was ready to start low, I wasn't ready to stay there. I knew I would get growth through up to some point. So here are some of the strategies that I used and some of the things I've kept learning over time. One is starting preparations early for that transition, because like I said, it requires mental preparation and also physical planning. But like also I indicated at the beginning that how long this takes and how soon you start this will depend on the reason for the transition, which I already, the reasons that I stated earlier. So for me, since I knew I was not going to pursue an academic career, so my preparation started right away, early enough to, preparing for MDARD. Know what you need to prepare. I'll come back to that in a minute, referring to my specific example. Identify potential employers. If you don't know yet where you're going, but you want to transition from academia, where do you want to go? Which kind of employers are you looking at? Because you'll need to know in order to prepare adequately. Research about those employers. After identifying them, research, check their websites and see what they've got, whether you have the skills they need, or how you can acquire those skills to be able to join there. Then give yourself a timeline. Like I said, this process should not just be, should go on forever. You have to give yourself a timeline that I must transition by this time. I must have this ready to be able to achieve this. I mean, to move to where I want to go. So like I stated that I'll come back to this later. Know what you need to prepare. Now, for a foreign national like me, when I came in at that time, besides being able to move, say, from universities to a non-academic setting, there is also one element that is very critical that will make you not be able to transition if you don't look at it early enough. And that is eligibility to work in the US. So I came in from Uganda on an H-1B visa, which is an employment-based visa. And this visa, the employer applies for you to get, to get into the US, and they state that they are able to pay your salary, and they also pay the fees that are required for that visa. So, but those are normally short-term visas. They are not long-term, and they have a lifetime. For instance, universities normally they have those opportunities of sponsoring people to become eligible to work in the US. But most other employers, including MDARD, and most people will not be ready to do that. They don't offer those opportunities of sponsoring you to be, to work here. And those visas are normally tied to the employer. So once that employment with that employer ceases, even your eligibility to work and to live in the US ceases. So you must either leave the country or find another employer who is ready to sponsor you. And those are not always very available, by the way. So I had to work out a way of becoming a permanent resident and later on a citizen, because that way you're not tied to any employer and you'll still be able to live here without needing sponsorship. So that is very critical for someone who is a foreign national, which needs to be considered. So other things that have to be looked at, establish and maintain networks. This helped me so much because even in my quest for to transition to permanent residence, the process requires, some paperwork, a lot of paperwork, and requires to have people to recommend you, people in your field that attest to the fact that you are going to contribute to the country. There's a category of visa there, which is called a national interest waiver, which is normally for advanced degree holders, but you must, file a lot of paperwork with the help of people in your field to recommend that you are able to contribute to the country. So that those networks helped me so much during my time as a postdoc. I established these networks and were able to write for me letters. Then also build resilience. It's important to build resilience because you'll get so many disappointments during the process of applying for positions. I did not get into MDARD the first time. I got in at the fourth attempt, and each time they would shortlist me for interviews. But because the positions were high and I did not know that I couldn't get in at higher level, later on I learned that, but someone also from inside told me so. But they knew that I was a potential person to come in, so they kept me interviewing me for subsequent positions until this one, which I was able to get in. So if I was discouraged from the earlier ones, I would not have been able to get in. So promote yourself at every opportunity. Make sure you showcase your skills so that someone will be able to see there and know that, yes, you are there and you are able to contribute to the organization. At the right time, you'll be able to get in. That's how I was able to get in, because of I showcased my skills. Also, regularly update your accomplishments. Anything that you add onto your resume, or anything that new comes up, whether training or a webinar or any kind of writing you have produced, just update your resume so that in case you are remember you are in a process of searching, transition. So as soon as you meet someone and they ask you maybe for your resume, you should just tell them, just give me your email address and I send it right out, because that one, it will even show them that you are very ready and you are so on top of things, instead of going to say you taking some time to update it. You are all ready. So that is very helpful. Then another thing, conduct routine self-reflection. This will help you know how far you have gone and how much more you need to do to be able to get where you want to go. Also, win advocates. Like I said during my earlier interviews with MDARD, some people saw potential in me, and even though those positions I could not get them, they later called me and told me that we are not able to give you this, but we see potential. Wait for other opportunities which are lower that you'll apply for. So they knew that I was there, and because I had made an impact on them. Seize every opportunity that comes, whether it's a training or a webinar or any presentation that you are called to. Get it and be there, present your stuff, and people will be able to see you. Keep focused on the goal, no matter the disappointments or the discouragements, and you'll be able to succeed at the right time. Be open-minded, receive all sorts of advice, but make your final decision after evaluation. Be intentional about continuous learning. There's a saying that says that if you stop learning, you stop to grow, and you don't want to be in that position where you are not growing. So keep learning and continue to be always looking for information, looking for new things to help you grow. I'll end with a quote here that says, "Excellence is never an accident. It's a result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, skillful execution, and the vision to see obstacles as opportunities." So even when you're not given a position, that's an opportunity for you to get the next level, to improve your skills and move on. Thank you. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I really appreciate that. Let's go ahead and move on to Kayleen. Do you mind going next? Okay, great.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Let me share my screen as well. Okay. So, hello, everyone. Um, Kind of a little bit different from Stephen. I was actually in academia for a long period of time. So I was actively teaching for about 13 years. And I transitioned over into my position here at MDARD. So, my presentation just kind of looks at an overview of that and probably reinforces some of those same good ideas that Stephen presented as well. But to get into things, this will allow me to move forward. Oh, there we go. So initially, at the start of my career path, I really wanted to teach, and that was my primary focus. So I went to Saginaw Valley State University. I got my degree in English education. I wanted to teach at the secondary level, which was, about 6th grade to 12th grade. But I found that when I graduated from that, the job market was very, difficult to get into. And at that time, I also got an opportunity at Central Michigan University. So I took that experience. And as a graduate assistant, I was able to teach as well as to learn at the same time. So I thought that was a good opportunity to build up that teaching resume and just, start on that track. And then after graduating from CMU with my master's degree, I began teaching there as an adjunct or fixed term faculty, and I was kind of bouncing back and forth between Saginaw Valley as well as CMU in order to, just create a full schedule for myself. Because with adjuncts, I mean, sometimes you just have to grab, exactly what's out there, and sometimes it's not always that full schedule, and you just need to create that balance. And then after that, I was able to get more of a steady fixed term position at CMU. And the longer that I worked there, the longer contracts that I got. So instead of just going from year to year, I was maybe, every other year or every 3 years. And then I was eventually able to transfer over, and I got a teaching position at MSU. So, even though I really liked what I was doing and I really liked teaching, there were a lot of drawbacks to, some of those academic positions that I was in because I had to reapply for my job every year. So that has, that lack of job security. And with working in the humanities, the pay was pretty low. And, you just kind of want more security on that end as well. And with teaching composition and first year writing, it was a pretty intense workload because I was always grading papers, get up early to grade papers, staying up late to grade papers, just in order to get everything out. And then as soon as you do, like more papers come in. And also from semester to semester, my work schedule was completely unpredictable because you would just get whatever was available and whatever maybe some of the regular faculty and tenured faculty did not want to teach. So, sometimes you would have big gaps or, only, just are on campus at very, odd hours and odd times. And just with the positions that I had, there was very limited opportunities for advancement because I did not have a PhD. And, to get a PhD, it would take more time, which, would interfere with what I was able to teach and the schedule that I was able to build there. So even though I really liked what I was doing, I felt like after 13 years, I just needed, a change to things and just to, get some more, stability. But with doing that, it's always like, being a teacher is what I wanted to do from the very beginning. So if I wasn't an instructor and if I wasn't teaching, then, what exactly did I want to do, and how exactly did I want to move forward, and, what did I maybe want to keep from, my academic experience, and what exactly did I want to continue to do, and, how exactly could I apply those skills in a new field. So, I really had to just kind of do that self-reflection assessment in terms of, how exactly I wanted to move forward. So it's like, what exactly could I do? What did I have the experience already doing? So someone would see me as qualified for, that particular skill. And then also, what exactly did I enjoy doing? And, trying to find that mix of all of that in a new position. So I was really open to whatever sort of, answer that could possibly give me. So I was looking in a variety of areas. So not only, in a government position, but, also in the private sector as well. And, just in part of that self-reflection, it always helps to think in terms of, those key terms and, some of those keywords and, what exactly, did I do as an instructor, and, just really try to boil that down in terms of some specific bullet points. Or some specific actions or skills that really encompassed a whole lot of that. So by coming up with those words, it gave me some avenues to start searching, and that helped to reveal some options to me for what else that it is that I could, do with the skill set that I had. And also just from, the work experience that I had up until that point, I tried to isolate kind of like what I liked and, what I wanted to avoid, and use them to help refine my search and my overall approach to what, I wanted to do and where next that I wanted to go. And again, also thinking of those limits of not only, what did I want, but what did, I want to avoid. So, I wanted to avoid things that had some, irregular hours. I wanted something that was more stable and long term, trying to avoid some of those limited, term, possibilities. And also location was pretty important too, because I have a spouse and he was kind of rooted in his job. So, that kind of limited some of those possibilities there. But it not necessarily a bad factor, but just also something to consider as well. And just in continuing to, refine, that search and exactly, how I was approaching things, I would just start, typing in, as I said, some of those keywords for myself, and, just see what sort of positions really came, up with that, and, really match that. And that helped me to, find some potential employers. So that is kind of what initially set me on the track of thinking of the state of Michigan as, a potential avenue to look into. And sometimes that translation of some of those academic-based skills to non-academic takes a little bit of trial and error. So every time that I would, go to an interview and get that feedback, I was able to, it's like, okay, there was something about, that resume or that cover letter, or, how I approached that interview that worked. Let's hang on to those pieces, and, use that to, continue to work with the rest of the stuff. So it took me a while to figure out how exactly to talk about, my skills and things like that. to, you know, a non-academic type industry. And sometimes with those potential employers, you know, they might not fully understand or really appreciate how maybe some certain skills or abilities are scaffolded, because I kind of ran into some issues like, you know, like with my current position, I write a lot of like news releases and press releases. But in some other, you know, communication positions that I applied for, you know, they would just be like, oh, well, you haven't written a news release. And it's like, but I wrote an honors dissertation. Um, so it's like, I can certainly write, you know, something like that because I wrote something much more complex. But sometimes how, you know, all of those things really fit together, you know, are maybe not incredibly clear. So I tried to, you know, just kind of simplify exactly what, you know, you know, had done and what my experience happened to show, in order just to be as direct and literal as possible. And sometimes with some of my academic achievements, again, I had to like translate that and, you know, work with that a little bit because maybe exactly what that means or what that shows to that outside audience isn't exactly clear. So it's just, again, you know, always striving for, you know, trying to talk about yourself and your experiences in a way that someone from a separate type of industry will get and understand. And, you know, when it comes to that non-academic career path, you know, I still wanted to make sure that I was using some of those critical skills, you know, because I like to write and I like to research and I like to learn and I like to, you know, educate others. And I wanted to hold on to those pieces, you know, into whatever sort of new career path that I was able to come up with. And I do now, in my current position as a communications representative, you know, rely on a lot of those skills that I had, you know, in academia. And really, at the end of the day, I feel like I still teach. I just teach on a completely different topic. So instead of, you know, teaching about, you know, essay structure and research and, you know, documenting sources and, you know, things like that, you know, I am, you know, educating a different audience on, you know, animal health and, you know, disease and best practices and, you know, things like that. So it has, you know, it has been an adjustment and there was a lot to learn, you know, in this new space, but at the same time, I was using all of those similar skills. So it was somewhat of an easy transition to make. So, you know, on that day to day, you know, I'm still writing, I'm still designing, I'm still, you know, working with colleagues, and again, bringing over a lot of those skills that I developed in academia into my current work and my current job. So, you know, really, you know, that transition just went smoother because, you know, I was able to retain what I wanted from my previous experience. So that just really helped overall and to help kind of give a purpose to what I am doing currently. So that is my overview. And again, contact information is there if there are any sort of additional questions or outreach. But I will pass it back to you, Janetta.
Thank you so much, Kayleen. I appreciate that. It's let's just for time's sake, let's go ahead and go to Stephanie.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm. Oh, oh, I think you're seeing the wrong one, right? Oh,
We're seeing the speaker notes.
yeah, Do you remember where I can change that?
Oh,
Well, yep, I think I got it.
okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Yep.
So I am Steffi Rhodes, and I am currently the plant pathology laboratory scientist for the Bureau of Environmental Sustainability. I really like this format because like I think everyone shares a little bit, and I think we each have like different experiences with how we got to where we got. So I hope everyone out there can take something of what we have to share and take something away that maybe helps them find their non-academic career. So a little bit about me. I am German. So I did my undergrad at the University of Münster in Germany. And after I graduated, I had a unique opportunity to move to the United States and do a PhD program at Washington State University. And that was like a great experience, and I absolutely loved it. Um, I'm I was very much like from the beginning, I always wanted to be in like a laboratory environment. So after my PhD, I again fell into an opportunity for a postdoc, and that was at Michigan State University. So I moved across the states to Michigan, and I worked with two different professors. And this is kind of where it started to sink in for me that the academic career, while it's great and you have like a lot of freedom in what you can do and research and work on, it wasn't as stable as I had hoped it would be. So I worked with two different PIs, and they really made things work for me. But it also like every year I had to like prove myself and make them know that yes, I'm amazing. You got to keep me. Please pay for my position. So that stability I felt was lacking. And towards the end of my postdoc, I also started my family, and having to fight for a job every year and having to hope that I get it, like get funding, was just too much for me. But yeah, here a little bit about like who I was. So it was very much focused on basic research. My graduate work was on plant membrane dynamics, which a lot of people like would not know about at all what that is. It is everything that I was doing was like related to photosynthetic work, and how the plant adapts to change. And then during my postdoctoral work, I again worked on a photosynthetic field parameter and how we could image those in the field. But it was again very, very basic. And so the first challenge that I faced was really that's difficult to apply to a real life setting. And like, how do you really use that when you don't work in academia on something super, super focused? So some of my personal tips on finding what you want is really look at the job market, look at various job opportunities and your options. Do you want to stay in academia? There are ways to make it work. One of my alternatives to like postdoc was like maybe finding like a lab manager position within like a PI's lab. Another option for me specifically was like the industry. I actually applied for a few jobs, didn't get them, but I was still early in my looking. And then state government positions or USDA, if you happen to be a US citizen. Um, but yeah, the main takeaway is you want to find something that is interesting, that has an acceptable pay. Stephen already talked about sometimes getting a pay cut early on is worth it for like a more stable job in the long run. I ended up moving to my non-academic career with like the same pay, which as a postdoc wasn't like huge, but I ended up with the same pay. And then over the years though, I think I make a lot more now than I would have if I had stayed in academia. And then again, yeah, you also want to look at like an area you would want to live in. Another thing you want to start thinking about is identify some skills that you may need for a potential job. Like maybe you have the ability to shape a research project so that it fits in like more applicable science. Also taking up new roles. In my second postdoc, I really started like doing more lab manager work because I knew I loved being in a lab and I wanted to like apply it a little bit better. So I started doing lab management tasks, and that really helped me to get my current job. And then also sign up for any trainings. Sometimes like just go out of your comfort zone and learn something new, be like moldable, and yeah. If you can do an internship, I had like started looking into maybe trying to get an internship before I got a job with MDARD, just because I wanted to see what it actually was like. And yeah, sometimes they have these available for industry jobs as well. It's yeah, those are nicer when you're younger. I was getting to a point where they probably wouldn't really take me as an intern, but I was getting desperate to find something stable, so I would have done anything. And then also apply for a job. Try not to talk yourself out of an opportunity. I almost did that with my with my state job, because I was like, this is just too good to be true, and they probably already have someone. Like I was not gonna do it until everyone was like, nope, you have to apply, use it as an experience, and don't give up. A few things that I did before I really got into the job search was I updated my LinkedIn and made sure it like highlighted what I could do. I further went onto this website and I made some alerts for jobs that I was interested in. So they have like a function where you can put in like, I want a laboratory job, or like certain like job titles that you might be interested in and you might fit in. You can make alerts and then you get an email sent to your email address. And that's actually how I found out about the job that I ended up getting. And yeah, here's the like job alerts. Like I put in agriculture, laboratory, environmental sciences, natural resources, and those were like the big things that I was interested in. And then here is like an example of like how you can think about yourself in that position. So this was the plant pathology laboratory position description for the laboratory scientist that was my position. And as education, it needed a bachelor's degree. I think a lot of people have that, and this was specifically in like something science related, chemistry, biochemistry, biology. And then as the duties, I was like very happy. Like I fit like all of this, and I was super excited, but still I had like my doubts, and I kept telling myself, oh, I'm probably not going to be good enough. But the biggest part was assist the lab manager with laboratory testing support. I was like, hey, I can do that. I've worked in the lab for 13 years. And then coordinate laboratory operations. I had already started doing that with my second postdoc. So I was super excited that I had stepped up a little bit in my lab to do that. And then some of it was develop and manage a quality management system. And that's really just a term for having really good documentation of what you're doing, like your procedures on how you run a test, and having records of what you do. And I could already do that as well. I had already done some of that in my previous labs. And then also the last part was assist. I was willing to assist and was excited. My other challenge in this case was I was overqualified. Coming into a laboratory scientist position that required a bachelor's did not really ask for someone with a postdoctoral degree. But I really wanted to get out of academia, so I worked on writing a great cover letter where I explained why I wanted to switch and why I was the perfect person for the job. And I really just highlighted that I can do anything, and I highlighted the methods that I had already learned and how I can adapt to anything that they may throw my way. In this case, like they over the years, like when I actually got hired, the first interview, they weren't quite sure if I was the right fit because they were like, oh, maybe she wants to do research, but the state job doesn't really offer research. But it came out we ended up doing a second interview, and I was like, I don't really want the research part. I like the lab, I like diagnostics. And I was like, let's do this. And later down the road, we've ended up doing more research than my my supervisor had actually planned, because I was available to do projects that other people probably wouldn't have been available and able to do because I had the background experience. So sometimes the job can also grow with you when you bring a lot of experience already. And then, yeah, so in my resume, I really try to highlight what I can do. So I try to like highlight that I have great organizational skills, that I have in the past managed undergrads, that I can develop and write SOPs. I am decently good at presentation skills. So on my second page, I had put like all the presentations I had given over the years. And then for interviews, and yes, there may be rejections along the way, just stay resilient. It's important to show resiliency too. Steven mentioned earlier that he had to interview a couple times before they found the right fit for him. I was lucky, and it was really my first interview that, like, because it was the perfect job. I did never really like interviewing for something that I'm like not 100% like behind. So like this was my opportunity, and I got lucky. And I love the job that I have. Also get feedback where you can. I ended up my husband had done a student assistantship with Eagle, and his supervisor during that time actually offered to look at my cover letter and CV, because she was like, hey, maybe I have a few tips. And she also gave me some of the typical interview questions so that I could prepare myself for the interview style, which at the state is a little bit different than what most of us know from academia. And then also network where you can. I think before I really got into like, okay, I don't want to be in academia anymore, I was really open to like any workshop that would bring people together from like state and industry fields, so that I had I was ready when the opportunity came. And yeah, I guess that is it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and yeah, let me know if I can help.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you, and thank you all for sharing your unique experiences. I noticed some common themes across your like professional academic journeys, but it was also clear each of you kind of developed these unique strategies based on your individual contexts. I'd like to open it up to questions with the last 10 minutes that we have. You could, like anyone here, you can unmute, or you could put your questions in the chat. I could also get the ball rolling with questions. So something I thought was really interesting that all of you kind of mentioned in some way is this idea of entry-level positions after you had these like advanced degrees. Do one or more of you mind explaining that, maybe the differences between kind of these non-academic jobs and what entry level means and how promotion works versus maybe like what it looks like in academia. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think let me try to have a go at that. So, for instance, in MDARD, there are structures. You start as, say, you enter as a like level 9, but they go, there's 10, 11, 12, 13, up to I think 18 or something to the top manager. So once you get in at the 9 level, you get in, but as you gain experience and as years go by, other people retire, others, go to higher positions. So there's always room created up there for you to move forward, right? So you just apply for those positions for as long as you are suited. So sometimes they say to get this position must have been at, say, level 9 for this number of years. So once you enter that level, but once you stay there, as years go by, you gain that experience, and you also sometimes you are positioned because someone who was there has moved up. You are positioned to go into that next level of promotion. So because of your being in and also gaining experience, you go there. As opposed to the academia, it may take quite a lot of years, maybe to move from, say, an assistant professor to say an associate professor or whatever. It takes a lot. Your publications and maybe your projects, how much you have achieved and stuff. It may not, it's kind of different, for instance, in the other side. It may not be how much you have done or how long you have played, but at times you may be positioned just to take up that position of someone who has moved up. So, that's probably what I can say.
I can add on a little bit to that too. So also here at the state of Michigan, we have what is called the desk audit, which is if you think that like you are doing more than what your original position description was because you are bringing in so much to the job from your experience, you can see if like you can get a level increase that way too. So I know some other communication folks in a similar position to me have done that in the past. Might not be the same for all types of positions and things like that, but that is another option as well. So sometimes those additional skills and what we are bringing to the table, also puts us in a unique position to argue and advocate for our advancement.
Yeah, I have one last thing to add. So specifically for my position, as I like it was an entry level as like a 9 through 11. And like the 9 is like the basic, you have a bachelor's with like little to no experience. And the 11 is like after 2 years of working at the 9, you would basically be an 11. Like you get upped over the years. My supervisor was able to get me in as an 11 because I had postdoc experience with MSU, and the PhD didn't really count, which sometimes is a little frustrating, I think, to people when they do apply for state government jobs. Like the degrees don't always count as experience, which is a bummer. But then again, we do also have opportunities for these desk audits where they will assess how much you are actually doing, and we actually have been working on that too, to get someone like stepped up a little higher, because like over the first 6 years of being with the state, the pay level increases a lot quicker. And if you have a desk audit, like your pay may be adjusted to reflect the extra work you are doing, which is nice.
Thank you. That's incredibly helpful. We have a question in the chat. They say, it seems like you all found employment locally without moving too far from your latest academic position. Do you think finding opportunities was more difficult because you were trying to limit relocation? How do you think your options or considerations would have changed had you been searching on a national or international level?
So for me, mine was limited locally because my husband was in grad school at the time and we didn't want to leave. But I had looked at some stuff outside of the state, and I had applied for a job in Iowa, at a like industry type job, and I think we actually would have moved. So yeah, it always depends on like what career, what step in the career you're at. Because we had family, we had kind of restricted ourselves locally. We had bought a house already, and our preference was to stay in Michigan.
For me, actually, yeah, I was at the first, I was not restricted to where I would find a job. When I came, I was ready to go anywhere in the state, and I indeed, after my postdoc, the second postdoc with MSU ended in 2020, and their companies were not recruiting because of COVID, so there was a bit of some quiet period there. So I was really throwing applications everywhere, like I'd always done, even for things which were unsolicited kind of applications. So how even I got here, by the way, to come to the US in the first place, I didn't apply to a position that was advertised. No, I just threw my applications to potential employers just like that. And I mean, it's, if I had a lot of time, I'd give you the story, but it's a long one. So that's how I got in. So by just throwing applications to potential employers, even when there is no position advertised. So me, I was open to everything. But at some point later on, after I'd settled here, like now when I joined MDARD, I knew that I don't want to move from here because I kind of established myself. I also had I bought a home and all that kind of stuff. So kids in school, yes, I didn't want that kind of, but earlier on I was ready to go for anything that came up. Even internationally, I would still go and work wherever. But yeah, I kind of later on strategized to stay here in Michigan, because movement also is it involves a lot, and yeah, it's not fun.
I guess just to add to the conversation, so when I was looking for jobs, just because I was looking for things more in that communication realm, a lot of the, kind of the jobs that I was most interested in seemed to be centered in either Lansing, Grand Rapids, or Detroit. So I was willing to like make the drive or make the commute. So even coming into Lansing, it is about an hour of a commute for me. But I figured that like, okay, if a place is, really interested in me, it's like maybe we can argue for like some of those remote options. And just so happens, after I had my interview here at the state of Michigan, things closed down for COVID. Um, so then everyone was work from home, and it completely changed a lot of the dynamics there. So things just kind of fell into my lap that way. But I probably, as I said, I was ready to negotiate something if someone really wanted me that was further away from where I wanted to be, because I was also dealing with a spouse's employment as well, and he was kind of rooted to where he was, so we couldn't go too far. So yeah.
All right, well, that actually takes us exactly to 5 o'clock, which is, we've met our hour. Thank you again, Stephen, Kayleen, and Stephanie. This was incredibly helpful, and thank you for being so generous with your time and sharing your experiences and insights. If you'd like to join us for our workshop, for everyone who's here, it will be at Thursday at 4 p.m. via Zoom, same Zoom link, same passcode and everything. So I hope to see you there. And again, thank you everyone for coming and participating. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.